Hi, this is Dr. Emily Schrening with AR. I'd like to say hello to all of our friends in Montana. This is our final state level forecast for the Northern Great Plains. We saw a lot of opportunity in Nebraska and the Dakotas, a rough outlook for Wyoming, and it looks like Montana is going to be balanced between those projections. There are some real challenges towards the mountains and definite hope for some increased agricultural productivity in the eastern half of your state. Let's get into it. The biggest issue you are looking at is the spring flooding. And you have seen that as a big issue this year for sure. That spring flooding is going to be caused by a confluence of factors. There's the winter warming for one. The winters over the last 50 years, they have been becoming milder with fewer really cool days. Let's look at this figure in the federal report. It's going to show the loss of days under 28. And we can see that at mid-century, under the RCP 4.5 scenario, which is sort of a market-based reduced emission scenario, we are going to lose cold in the mountains. 30 to 35 days by the border, more like 25 to 30 days of a shorter cold winter, shorter days to build snowpack on the western edge of the state here. So that's significant already. You're losing an opportunity to get snow on the mountains. The winters are getting shorter. Let's also see what's going to happen with winter lows through the lens of plant hardiness zones. To check that out, we're going to use the USDA plant hardiness zone map. This shows plant hardiness zones based on data from the 80s to 2009. Where in Montana, we have seen a range of plant hardiness zones, right? It gets up to only about a zone 6 around the Flathead Reservation here, and zone 5 as we approach the Idaho border. Some pockets of zone 5 over by Billings, and then the rest of the state, quite a cold winter by anyone's estimate with a zone 4 and 3. As we look towards mid-century under RCP 4.5, we can see some pretty significant changes actually, more than in many states, where that zone 5 pocket around Billings is expanding fairly dramatically. And the mild area by Idaho is growing. More larger zone 6 areas, expansion to zone 5. And let's look at the mountains. We have these zone 3 areas to look at, the critical snowpack areas. Looking back at contemporary data, let's keep an eye on those. We do see some pretty serious shrinkage right around those mountains, particularly in that crucial western edge of the state, more than many mountain ranges. If you want to look at a mountain range that's going to have relatively consistent snowpack, we have better preservation in Idaho than in Montana. Unfortunately, it's just a truth that we got to face as we get ready for the future. It's quite significant too as we think about the flooding. As the snow line moves up the winters because of this warming, shorter, milder winter, we're also going to be getting more winter and spring precipitation. The winter precipitation, let me show you, it's not such a big increase. So you're not going to get as much of an increase in snowpack that's then going to melt immediately with the spring precipitation. Montana is looking at maybe 5 to 10% increase in winter precipitation by the mountains. Definite increase, 10 to 15% increase in this part of the state that already has some nice agricultural success. So this might be good news for this part of the state. Where we see the cross hatching in this map indicates statistical significance, where year to year you're likely to see that increase. It'll be more sporadic, the increases in winter precipitation. What we need to check out though for the spring flooding are the changes in the spring precipitation. And there Montana is getting a bit whacked. In the mountains, we see it is crosshatched for much of our vulnerable areas, and we're looking at a 10 to 15% increase in spring precipitation, and then for this whole eastern side of the state, 15 plus. Again, depending on how it falls, could be okay for your agricultural areas. This looks bad for flooding in Glacier National Park and in around Glacier National Park. A lot of potential for very serious spring floods. It's rough with more spring rain and a milder winter. What snowpack you get is going to melt sooner and it's going to melt fast. You know how those spring rains can melt the snowpack like flash flood fast, right? We used to be able to rely on that snowpack throughout the summer, get a good summer stream flow. But if we go back to the federal report, that is projected to change. I'm going to show you here changes in average stream flow by mid-century. Looking at this, this is done for a higher emission scenario, so hopefully we'll see milder changes than this. But I want to point out these big negative values right next to big positive values, particularly in our two main trouble spots for flooding, down by the border here by Yellowstone, and up here it's going to be increasingly severe up by Glacier National Park. Anytime you're looking at a map of change and you see big negative change and big positive change right next to each other, you know you're looking at some really disturbed area. The hydrology here is going to be changing in big ways. And when we saw those big decreases, that sort of beige area up in the northern western corner of the state, that's looking at decreases in flow throughout the year, right? The total stream flow is going down. These changes in hydrology are so big that on top of the changes in timing and the weather, the paths the water is going to take down the mountains with the snow melt are likely to change as deeper channels are carved by the spring floods. So you won't get an even melt, you'll get the flood side and the dry side. There's some serious flooding risk in Montana. We got to remember, most of the real crazy stuff is going to be isolated to those two trouble spots by Yellowstone and by Glacier. Let's look though at those decreased stream flows throughout the year in the context of the summer. We are looking at a big summer heat up in Montana. We're going to go over to the USDA heat zone map to check that out. Now this map, the colors show the typical number of days from the 80s to 2009 over 86. It's not going to be a shocker for anyone. Based on that data, western half of Montana, pretty cool summer. Eastern half of Montana gets pretty warm. This area here east of Billings, about 90 days a year over 86. As we look towards mid-century under RCP 4.5, we do see some pretty big changes, right? We see that cool summer becomes extremely elevation dependent in the mountains. The protective cool effect of the mountains is only going to be relevant when you get up high. In Helena here, we're going to see a change from maybe a week over 86, looking at 2 months. By Billings, it had been 60 to 90 days over 6. You're looking at 90 to 120 days over 86. In this area where you already have a lot of irrigation-based agriculture kind of going up the river, a lot of agriculture around Route 220, this may point to a potential for increased agricultural productivity in this eastern half of the state. We see more rain, we see a longer growing season. There's a lot of hope there, especially because you're over a great aquifer for continued sustainable use of groundwater for growing crops. So let's pull in for a minute here. This isn't a great outlook, but it's not terrible either. In, say, Wyoming, everything is hitting much worse than in Montana. I did recommend that people consider relocation in many parts of Wyoming, but in Montana, I don't recommend that sort of extreme course of action. I think most of you can dig in place, get ready, and find ways to build a good future right where you are. The spring floods will be very bad, but you're probably in a margin where you can prepare. The more of that precious water you can get into the ground, the more you can maximize your growth potential in the agricultural center. There's good agricultural health in your state right now and good aquifer health, a nice recharge rate on those aquifers too. It's going to be a matter of getting a handle on the spring floods, making enough room to be safe from them. Because with the changes in the hydrology-based snowpack, we're not going to get the good regular stream flow over the full course of the year that Montana used to have. Irrigation is going to be more important for agriculture all across the Northern Great Plains region. The good news, maybe the best news of all for our whole nation, is that there's fantastic potential for sustainable aquifer draw, not only throughout Montana, but throughout the critical Northern Great Plains region. It's absolutely essential for our nation's food security as we move through the century. There's real change and real loss coming in the mountain areas. Glacier National Park, we already know those glaciers are going away. The changes have been dramatic in our lifetimes already. We anticipate a greater degree of snowpack loss in Montana than, say, Idaho. It's going to be hard to see the beautiful landscapes in Montana change. And those changes in the water system, they're going to push everyone in the region away from surface water. That's really hard too. It's not only technically and emotionally hard, it's expensive. But these challenges, they do have industry-specific opportunities. It's a hard level of change to get on top of, but you're tough in Montana. And when you see an opportunity, I know you can take it. Although you're looking at decreases in tourism industry, you're going to have big increases in ag, and particularly related to irrigation. That would be a great industry to get training in now to get a jump on the future. It's coming fast. It's coming in 5 to 10 years. With the heat up coming, you're going to need a tune up to your grid as well. I can tell you from experience in the Midwest, those sustainable energy jobs that you could be looking at in Montana, they're very good jobs, just not only for families, but for communities. You're looking at a lot of variability and outcome across the state in Montana. The challenges vary from place to place, and so do the opportunities. Do your research, figure out how you and your community are going to need to change to get ready for the future, both to protect yourselves and to get in position for agricultural opportunity. If you want any help getting ready, any help with community level data crunching, please get in touch with me. This is Dr. Schoening with AR signing out. Please like and subscribe, help get the message out there. There is hope. We can prepare for what's coming. Let's get ready.